Thanks, everyone. So my name is Brennan Clark. Today we're going to talk about retention strategies, mostly through the lens of growth marketing and acquisition and how that can feed into retention. So my role at both Sago Mini and Tokoboka is to lead any paid acquisition and more generally kind of user acquisition. And so retention obviously is a huge part of user acquisition. LTV determines what you can pay up front. So we're going to talk a bit about how you can influence retention on the growth marketing side of things. So quickly about Sago Mini, Tokoboka. Both are kids app developers. We are technically in the mobile gaming stream right now. Whether kids apps are in the mobile gaming stream is another question. So together we've released 75 apps. We have 320 million app downloads. Sago Mini is built for 3 to 5-year-olds. Tokoboka is built for 6 to 8-year-olds. Both are kind of built on the backs of paid apps. And then on top of those paid apps, we have a single kind of freemium product. For Sago Mini, it's a subscription product. So for a $6.99 a month fee, you get access to all of our games. For Toko Life World, that is an in-app purchase product, so a little bit different in terms of the business models there. If we look at the top 10 kids app publishers, we're amongst some great names on that list. Tokoboka, obviously the number one. We do credit some of it to being kind of the first movers in the space, but we've continuously pumped out phenomenal apps for kids, of all ages. So what are we covering? First would be the importance of retention. I don't know if I'll have to do too much convincing in this room. If retention is very much a part of growth. You wouldn't be here if you didn't think so. The second is that we'll talk a bit about how retention impacts UA. It's very much a clear correlation. So again, I won't have to do too much convincing. And finally, we'll talk a bit about a couple of retention strategies and what a growth marketer can do to impact retention. So the first disclaimer, every business is different. This is a very, very apparent thing, but in our case, this will impact how we talk about retention, what is the metric itself. So of course, you're going to be like, this is a very standard thing that you would disclaim before a presentation. But here, if we look at different business models, subscription versus ads, these are two very different business models when we're talking about mobile gaming. It does impact how we talk about retention and even what the metric itself is. So we look at ads. Revenue comes from usage. Somebody sees an ad, that is your revenue. In this case, LTV is generally uncapped. There are users that are consuming a lot of ads. There are some that are consuming one ad. That LTV curve is going to be different. You're going to have a lot of business from your power users, and then you'll have a long tail of users generating revenue for you. And nowadays, it's actually being kind of melded into a hybrid model with in-app purchases. The way I like to look at subscription, there is somebody in the world out there, probably a little sad, but they like Netflix more than anybody else in the world. They are the number one. That user can only give Netflix $120 in that year. That is the max LTV that user can provide, assuming they don't go crazy and buy a bunch of subscriptions for some reason. So that is how we look at kind of the way that these business models are set up. The monthly payment for subscriptions, that is going to be your retention. Is a user paying next month? And for 12 months, that's 100% retention through the whole year. For ads, you need usage. You need a user to come back and actually be a monthly active user or whatever time frame you expect that behavior to happen on. So in ads, DAU, MAU, monthly active users, daily active users, they matter. One could argue that for subscription, it doesn't actually matter. If somebody is paying you $6.99 a month, but they don't use the app a single time in that month, do you really care? I mean, it's probably a metric that you should look at because that user is probably going to churn eventually, but theoretically, it doesn't matter. Second disclaimer is that not all experiments or not all features or things that you do in your business need to improve retention. while this talk is about retention and improving retention, look at it as an ensemble with a bunch of other metrics in your app. One instance for Sago Mini that actually hurt retention in a positive way is that we introduced intro pricing. So the first month, users now get 99 cents for the first month. It's kind of an extension of a free trial. That really hurt retention. We have a large drop-off of people that are not willing to pay the $6.99 after. They had a month to test it out. They didn't like it enough, so they're not paying. However, the conversion rate increase that we saw was drastic. We're looking at double-digit increase, and so that actually outweighed the loss in retention, and it was a net positive for our business. So the importance of retention. If we look at, this is about a year and a half old now, but I'm sure the metrics would look almost the same. Retention is pretty much a pulse on whether you have a good app or not. Are you a top app? Are you a mid-tier app? Are you a low-tier app? Retention will pretty much define that for you. You look at your retention, compare it to your kind of cohort of competitors. That will tell you if you're running a good business. So, sorry, going back, I think it's important to note that this is usage retention. This is monthly active users, daily active users. That is different from a subscription retention. So if we look at a 10% difference in subscription retention, so 80% versus 90% of those users are purchasing again the next month. If we start at zero, this is a brand new app or a brand new business, over the first year, it looks like the two businesses are relatively similar. As we approach 2, 3, 4 years, you are looking at two drastically different businesses. One is double the size pretty much of the other, and you have blown this other company out of the water. So how does that impact UA? We have two very different LTV curves. We have two very different businesses in a sense. Over that time period, what you can pay to acquire a user profitably is double what app B can pay. You improve your retention by 10%, you are doubling what you can pay if you're buying over a 4-year LTV. Most of you probably won't be buying over a 4-year LTV. But if you look at the LTV curve for both of these businesses, no matter where on this LTV curve you're buying against, if it's 12 months, 24 months, 48 months, you are happier if you have 90% retention than if you have 80% retention. If you are talking user acquisition, you need retention to be able to afford and scale all your user acquisition. So when we talk about retention strategies here, most of the time, if you're talking about retention strategies, you're focusing on those lower kind of features in the app, lower funnel, all these kind of different ways to continue retaining users. But my argument is that top of funnel needs a little love too. There are a lot of things that you can do top of funnel as a growth marketer or somebody on the acquisition side of things that will impact what those users do in the app and how they're retained over their lifetime. First is to set expectations. When a user is going to download your app, they have a set of expectations coming into an install of what that in-app experience is going to be. And so you can actually help that user understand what they're getting into by leveraging video. Video allows you to convey more of a message before the user even downloads your app. Don't overpromise. Don't sell things that you're not actually selling. Don't hide pricing. If you're doing an intro price, please declare the actual monthly price alongside it. That is a quick way to lose a lot of users as well. And then finally, invest in your App Store listing. We just had a great talk before lunch here about App Store optimization. Jam City was talking about how they test all their different videos. Definitely invest in that. Spend time on A/B testing your icons, A/B testing your video, your text, you name it. We actually just ran an experiment on the app icon for Sago Mini. It's probably 4 months ago now, and we saw a 20% increase in installs just by changing the icon. It was adding 2 characters instead of 1 and changing the color and making sure that the character was also recognizable in our portfolio of characters. This is if anybody's in the mobile gaming space, I highly recommend you checking out i3stars. This is a YouTube channel. He consistently just puts out videos, basically exposing in a sense a variety of game studios, showing how different their ads are versus their actual in-app play. It does work. I mean, it's kind of clickbaity, but in the long run, it's going to hurt both users and marketers. When you have that drastic of a difference between the experience in-app and the experience in the actual ad, then if there's any trust left in marketers, which I would argue there's not much left, that's going to continue to fall, and users are going to churn quickly. It's going to hurt your retention. Please don't do it. So one of the things that our growth team likes to do when kind of walking through the setting expectations, we like to run this UX kind of just very quick, short experiment. You get the user to walk through, you might have an ad or a sequence of ads. You walk that user through those ads, then you stop them on the Google Play Store, the App Store, or whatever they go to. Then you ask them to describe what they expect in that app. You want a reasonable answer. They don't have to know everything about the in-app experience, but if they are coming into a kids app expecting a sports app, you have done something wrong and your churn will be huge. Second, this kind of feeds into the setting expectations, is to improve the onboarding flow. The big thing, removing friction, this has been preached for 10 years, so I won't go into detail too much about that, but pretty much just drop any steps that are not significant to the onboarding of a user. And the second is to understand what your actual goal is with your onboarding, and that's going to vary pretty drastically from company to company. If we look at a couple examples here, LinkedIn, everybody hates this stupid add a bunch of friends, add your whole contact book, add your whole email book, but it works. They know that they can annoy you, but if you invite people, then you will actually have a good experience and be retained. If they don't annoy you up front, you will be annoyed when you get in the app and you have no friends or have no connections, and you will churn. So you have to understand what the goal of that first kind of onboarding experience is, and tailor to hitting that goal. The very famous one from Facebook, was about 10 years ago now, was that the golden rule was that they needed users to get 7 friends in 10 days. If they did, they were pretty much a lifetime user. So everything that the growth team at Facebook did surrounded getting users to this 7-friend goal. Now, if you look at Sago Mini, our goal is a little different. What we just launched this year actually was a necessary, like a forced onboarding where they have to create an account. The big thing for us is that our user are 3 to 5-year-olds. You cannot email a 3-year-old. So when a user was downloading our app and playing our app, we lost all method of communication with the adult. That was the kid's tablet or the kid's phone. It's quite the world we're living in now where 3-year-olds have their own tablet. But we lost that method of communication with the parent. So our goal then turned into how do we get into touch with the parent and have that consistent stream of communication. And so this forced account creation upon downloading the app was the way that we approached that. And again, this comes back to what is the goal of your onboarding experience. This is very different from a Facebook or a LinkedIn. And so it's worked out quite well for us so far. So to sum up that point, you need to give the user the tools that they need to get the most out of your app, and you need to do it as quickly as possible, get them to the experience after achieving all your goals as quickly as possible. Third, this is a little preachy in a room like this, but segment your revenue attribution. I assume that everybody is doing it, I hope. If you aren't, please do. And I can't stress enough that the word minimum is placed there and needs to be bolded. At a minimum, your geo, channel, platform all need to be segmented out. That is how you're going to make decisions and tailor in-app experiences for certain cohorts, for certain geographies, you name it. So when you get down to these kind of more granular KPIs, and again, I will stress this is a minimum, please do more than this if you can. If we're looking at two different channels here, both in the US, both driving to the iOS app, we might have one app that has a multiple on retention over the other channel. That obviously really hurts the break-even CAC that we can run on that. But so segmenting this out, then you can start to build campaigns or in-app experiences for that specific segment. In our example here, we can imagine that channel B is a text placement on the ad platform side. Knowing that, you might want to tailor a lot of videos into your onboarding experience, which comes back to point 2, to convey the same message that channel A is receiving. Because channel B is clearly not getting what channel A is. Obviously, this is assuming parity and audience quality, but that's another story. Then you want to make sure that you convey the same message that channel A is receiving in their onboarding. And fourth, we have tailoring experiences at scale. This is kind of focusing on the user data that you have. So I guess kind of the kind of point that you need to hit before this is that you're collecting the relevant data in the back end and then driving value through that data. So you're personalizing, even as you're scaling, even as you're growing, you're ensuring that you're personalizing across all these different touch points. So one very basic example of this on the Sago Mini side, we notice within Sago Mini World, which hosts all 30 of our apps, that a user is playing trains a lot. The kid likes trains. We will focus all of our retargeting efforts, re-engagement efforts on the trains app or using the character shown in that specific app. Tailored push notifications. This is another one. This is a lean plum stat that personalization increases your open rates on your push notifications by 3x. One app or one segment of apps that I find does this really well is sports apps. It's kind of annoying in the onboarding experience where you have to select your favorite team or your favorite leagues, but that serves a purpose. All of your push notifications are going to be phenomenally tailored moving forward, even your email sequences, you name it. They have, again, coming back to that point 2, tailored their onboarding experience for a very specific goal, knowing that you're going to be re-engaged and going to come back. And then finally, as mentioned, was the tailored email experience. This is an Instapage, 41% here. So the promotional emails, if they are personalized, if they are tailored to you, they will have a 41% higher click-through rate. One that I like is Netflix. Netflix is pretty good at recommending videos that you might like. And so they have really done email quite well. So tailoring experiences at scale, kind of the homework for you is to identify areas and different touch points, different channels where you don't think you are hitting your personalization goals, and then start to A/B test, send out various notifications or various emails and see how your retention and your engagement are impacted by these changes. And the final point is that your marketing automation programs should give you motion sickness. They should be quite complex according to your various segmentation, your various channels, you name it. Invest a lot of time in your marketing programs. Thank you very much.